Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. We have a new series for you that I'm running on the channel, and it's basically going to be finding out why we love Newcastle United. I'm fascinated by people's stories, whether they live just down the road or whether you cross the pond, like our good friend Josh over there. Hello, Josh. Josh, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, hanging in there, keeping well. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Thank you for asking. I've obviously got Joe with us as well.
Hiya.
I think ours will probably be similar.
Yeah.
Because we're two local lads, but Josh will be interesting as well. But I want to know what you at home think. So let us know how you support Newcastle, whether you're local or you live, I don't know, 200 miles down the road, or if you're the end of the world. Was it your parents that influenced you, and so on and so on. I'm going to jump to Josh straight away.
Yeah.
What's your first memory of Newcastle United? It could be anything.
So it's FIFA.
Okay.
Back when early or late 2000s, when I barely knew anything about football, I just liked FIFA. And I remember at the time they were in the championship. I had no clue what promotion and relegation meant. So I said, they'll be my championship team, not knowing what that meant and anything. And that's really my first memory. I also remember, I think it was using Demba Ba when he was in it, and I was just like, man, this guy's going to be great. And then I remember a couple years later, when I got more into EPL and I understood football more, I think then he was with Chelsea. And just, I remember when he was with Newcastle. And the other big thing I remember is I remember loving the badge. I just thought it was very unique with the seahorses. I thought it was very unique, and I liked that. So those are probably my first memories of Newcastle.
Interesting. Joe, what's your first memory?
Laurent Robert. Laurent Robert. Seeing him come on the pitch and play, I can't remember what game it was exactly, but I remember sitting down. My family is massively into Newcastle United. They're literally like love and bleed black and white. My granddad was die hard. Although he didn't get to many matches, he would always be watching it. He would always be doing his best to make sure he's up to date on the matches. And I remember hearing about this lad that would sign French, Laurent Robert. And I was like, hold on a minute. Watched him come on the pitch and I watched him play. And that was where I fell in love with not just Newcastle as a whole, but football as a whole, because I loved the way Laurent Robert presented himself on the pitch. I loved his long strikes. I loved his intimidating wing runs that really, 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 really just hooked me in. And from that moment on, I was buzzing. I would always love a Newcastle United match, but when Laurent Robert was on that pitch, my goodness. Obviously, I was a little kid at the time, but I would act like a little kid even nowadays if Laurent Robert came on the pitch. I love that man, absolute pieces. Definitely a dream of mine to meet the man, without doubt. But that would be my first sort of memories. Laurent Robert coming onto the pitch and just playing his heart out. Love that. Absolutely love that.
Do you know what mine is? Do you
What?
know? You don't know, do you?
No, I'm certain you would have told us before on one of my many drives.
So mine's quite a sad one, to be honest with you. Mine's when we sold Andy Cole.
Oh.
I wasn't like mad into football at that stage. I don't know why that's my first memory. I just remember like all the kids at school older than me were talking about, can't believe we sold Andy Cole, can't believe we sold Andy Cole to Man United, our rivals. And I was like coming home thinking, Andy Cole's left Newcastle, all the goals, and he was like banging in, at the time with Beardsley, it was like 30, 40 a season. It was mental. That's my first ever memory, but really I fell in love that summer basically, because we had the stadium built, we had the iconic brown ale, home and away. We signed Les Ferdinand. Obviously, that's where my love comes in, because I didn't have a father figure. That's why Les Ferdinand was my father figure, and that's why my dog's named after him. He's my childhood hero. I think all of that, and then winning games, and I was like, is this normal? I just thought Newcastle would win all the time.
Yeah.
We'd win every single game. It was brilliant. Local lad, got me hero, scoring all the goals. Les Ferdinand, looked up to him, and that's why I fell in love with Newcastle. Josh, I want to ask you,
Yeah.
when was the moment you fell in love? Obviously, your first memory is FIFA, but
Yeah.
when was that moment you go, God, I love this team?
So it was the summer coming in when we were promoted, I think 2016, after we won the championship with Rafa. So try to put it concisely, I lived in Germany for a bit in the early 2010s. So that's when I really fell in love with football. And I still closely follow the team I lived in, Stuttgart, VfB. But anyways, then at the time, I loosely, don't crucify me, but I loosely supported Chelsea just because I had a buddy who was a Man U fan. So in the early 2000s, I did it just to kind of grind his gears and stuff like that. But when I graduated uni and I had it for my first job, there was a guy from Edinburgh that was my coworker, and he was kind of like a work dad to me, kind of like you're saying, and he just took me under his wing and always took care of me. And when he told me a lot about Newcastle, it resonated a lot with where my family's from, a city called Pittsburgh in the States, which is a working class city, very similar population. It used to be steel industry back in the 70s. It all collapsed and there were hard times and things like that. But the one thing they're known for is they've been numerous times voted the worst dressed city in the world because all their teams are black and yellow. So we wear black and yellow all year round, because they love their team, and we'll travel to San Diego, we'll sell out away ends and everything like that. So when I saw the passion and the clips of just St. James's and the fervor, that was when I was hooked, and I knew I didn't want to be a plastic Chelsea fan.
Yeah, because that goes around. I mean, it's interesting to say Germany as well, because they're quite like us. They're absolutely obsessed with football. So how long did you live in Germany?
I was there for a little over a year in total in 2 different spells. So I was there for half a year and then another half a year.
So because that's so big and so ingrained, a bit like the UK, where they're obviously obsessed with it, you mustn't have been able to escape from that.
No, I mean, it was all. I remember, again, because I didn't know much about football, and my initial entry was through FIFA, so I loosely would use Bayern. And my exchange brother, who I lived with, he was like, yeah, that ain't happening. And he real quickly nipped that in the bud, and he's like, you're going to support Stuttgart, some proper football, not these glory hunters. And ever since then, that's kind of been my thing. And again, I love Stuttgart. You know, some of Europe's best have come through their academy. They're one of, just like many of us, they're always getting poached. You know, Timo Werner, I know some don't like him, but he was through our academy. I was actually there for his debut game in Stuttgart back in college. Antonio Rudiger was from their academy. Blast from the past, Sami Khedira at Real Madrid was from their academy. Mario Gomez, Bayern. So anyways, lots of great players. So yeah, it was impossible to avoid it. And that's when I kind of got converted. And I mean, nowadays you could ask me about American football. I couldn't tell you a single thing. I don't know.
I like that.
Conversion. Full
conversion.
Joe, you said Robert was the first reason why you started to love the tune. Is that the only reason, or is that just because, like me, everybody in my school was Newcastle? There was no Man United, there was no Nottingham Forest or whatever. It was because in this city, it's Newcastle or no one. And back then, the internet when I was a kid it was only just coming around in the mid-90s, and then we had you had to rely on the Chronicle, the Pink for your news sources. Teletext, yeah, back in the day. Josh was probably thinking, what's that?
What's teletext?
Yeah. How did you fall in love? Was that also because of what the influences around you, like you said, your family as well?
It was the influences around us, but I think one of the best ways to put it, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, St. James's Park is known as the cathedral on the hill. A lot of people go, well, why? Well, it's because it's a religion. Now, to the point of when I was younger, if you walked into my granddad's house on a Saturday or a Sunday when the match was on, if you questioned any of Bobby Robson's choices, you would be chucked out of that house quicker than you could imagine. Because Bobby Robson was God in my granddad's household, and no one ever said a bad word about him. A couple of players as well. My dad and my granddad used to always argue about Alan Shearer because my dad, give me dad all the hate you want, by the way, yeah, but my dad doesn't like Alan Shearer at all. Can't stand him. He thinks he's overrated, thinks he's a glory seeker, all of these different things. And I'm just like, come on, Colin, what you doing? But my granddad used to love Shearer. And it was one of those where you would go into the house and you couldn't help but even people who didn't like football coming to my granddad's house on a Saturday or a Sunday. If you didn't like football, you either avoided my granddad's on the weekend, or you came in, you were going to talk about football, whether you knew about it or you didn't. Yeah. It was literally ingrained in our souls, in our blood. It was something the whole family resonated with. Everyone knew a little bit, at the very least, about Newcastle United. And it was hard not to fall in love when you have that kind of passion. And I mean deep-seated passion. Like I say, people would genuinely, I'd seen multiple people in the house get kicked out. My uncle at the time, who obviously lived with me granddad, getting kicked out for nearly the whole weekend because he besmirched Bobby Robson's name when he made an error and he lost a match against, I can't remember, I think it was Man United when we lost a match against Man United. And my uncle went wild and my granddad was like, right, you're out. Go find somewhere to sleep for the weekend.
It's interesting that because it was kind of like put on you as well. Yeah. For me, it wasn't because my dad's not into football. My dad was never around. My mum wasn't. I had a sister. Even my younger brother Connor, he's not even massively into football. So it wasn't really my family. It was more like going out playing football all day and learning and football stickers, swapping all of them and doing that at school. That was a hobby, and we'd swap. I'll give you this. I'll give you 10 for that shiny, and all of that. It was I sort of become probably a bit obsessed with it at an early age, where I would write down the team news and the attendance and the substitutes who would come on. Because back then there was no internet. You got to remember it was pen and paper, and I had a big, massive notebook, and that's where I get the creativity from. And obviously, it's led to things like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
Josh, obviously, when you were Newcastle United, when you were starting getting into it,
Yeah.
did you have anyone to let off steam to and talk about it to? Because you probably over the
So-
States, your family were they not bothered about it?
No one else in my family does anything with football.
Even now,
Even my missus, she would come and have a good time with it, if she came here. But, she knew how important this trip this first time was going to be for me. And she's like, listen, I'll just hold you back this time. So she said, go on your own, have fun.
I'm sick of you, get lost.
Yeah, but basically, so where I was living at the time still with my parents is kind of a rural area of Pennsylvania. And so it was really just my coworker. And I would drive an hour and a half to go sit in a bar, and it was just him and I watching the game. They would open up just for him because he was such a loyal patron to them. And we would watch the games, and I would get up maybe once a quarter, because it was just so challenging at the time as I'm getting situated. But yeah, he was really my only outlet. And it wasn't until I went to Philly and lived there and then found the Toon Army Philly group. And that now, I have a family and friends that we go and four of them came over. Well, I was the fourth, but four of us came over and it was all of our first match days on Wednesday, with the exception of one. She's actually a season ticket holder. But anyways, yeah, I'd been pretty much just had to go through the struggles on my own.
And nowadays, I think you're very fortunate that there's so many groups out there. There's so many
absolutely.
YouTube channels out there. There's so many media outlets now. I don't know if you're like you, but my Twitter account, my Twitter X is just football. That's all I use it for.
Yeah,
My Instagram is all football. It's my Facebook page that we run. It's all football. It's like any app that I go on social media, every single one is football first.
Yeah. When I would wake up in the morning, because I worked from home, the first thing I do is see what you posted. Then I would check some of the other channels, and things like that. And I mean, especially when it's a good win, I mean, you just sit there and you rewatch it over and over and over. And I see one of my favorite things still to this day to do is, technically in the States you can get every game, but you have to have cable. So I don't have cable. So there's a lot of games I still can't get. So I just go and listen to Matt Raisbeck and John Anderson, BBC Newcastle. And my ringtone on WhatsApp is John Ando's call of Dan Burns' goal versus Southampton in the Carabao Cup. And whenever people call me, all my friends have no clue what the heck it is, because it's just, Dan Burn!
I love that. I thought you were going to say something else, like, just hit it.
Oh, well, yeah, just put it in the net.
Yeah, he's famous for that. No, I think it's great for the modern age now, the fan, because back in the day, I mean, Joe, you're probably the same, where the internet was only just coming out, wasn't it? And you had to be a little bit rich to get the internet. We all relied on magazines and the what was it called, match and shoot and football stickers, cards, all of that. That was nowadays. It's
the fanzines I always hear about too.
Yeah, and obviously now it's all online and everything now, and it's so accessible.
It's funny you say that, right? Because one thing, and it'll be a different dynamic for you, Josh. You were saying there, like, you had this one bar where your friend would go to, and he was that loyal of a patron that they would open up for him. And I mean, we're in my hometown at the minute with Wallsend, and you can literally walk out, and to the left there's a bar, and all that bar is advertising outside is live Premier League football, and that's something that hasn't changed in probably about 20, 30 years, Lee.
Yeah.
It has not changed. You go along the street, and I guarantee every other bar along the street is advertising the same thing. And no matter where you go in Newcastle, you can walk into just about any bar. We've seen the thing posted. We've got, 174 bars within a mile radius. 274 within a mile radius of St. James's Park. It is literally ingrained into every part of this way. It's strange for you, and it's testament to how much of a loyal fan you've become. I really do think that, because how much you've had to struggle. No one really appreciates how hard yous will have to struggle. People from America and outside of England, how much will have to struggle just to watch a match.
I think it's a good point as well, because and this has probably been me putting a lot of American fans into one section. It's plastic. Haven't got time for that. Stereotype plastic, and obviously you're supporting Newcastle. We didn't win anything. Don't get me wrong. We hope we win something very soon.
Back-to-back solid cup champs,
let's hope. And it's like, does that grind on you? Because it gives, and I wouldn't just say America. You could probably look at like even the Asian market nowadays, the Far East. They've all kitted in Man United tops and Chelsea tops,
Yeah.
and obviously is that the same in the States? And do you look at that and think you don't, not the right terminology, but I'm going to use it. Do you don't love the club as much as I do because you follow that team through success? I follow the team through the hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get that, and especially it's funny in the States, you even get more of that. You know, people who have been Liverpool fans or Man U fans, and they'll say, "Oh, you must be just some glory hunter. You must have just started following." And I was like, "No, you know, I've been following since the Rafa days. I mean, I remember just sitting there at the gym. My trainer was a Man U fan and flicking. I was like, please take over, go through, you know, during that first round when it didn't go through. And, you know, I'm not going to say that I've been through all the hurt for sure. And, you know, I always say that I feel like an honorary, like a permitted guest. You know, you guys allow me in your space, but, you know, I don't feel like I'm a true Geordie, if you will. But, you know, I will, you know, like even when I got to
talk a good game.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. And when I came for my first matches, you know, the funny thing is the first thing I thought is like, I almost feel guilty because I hear so much about locals that can't get to games. And, you know, I happen to know someone who was able to hook me up and help me out. And, you know, but at the end of the day, I said, you know what, you know, I've loved them and I've supported them and I'll scream, you know, I was out till 4 a.m. on the tune in shorts and short sleeves the whole time. And we had a good time, you know, and I've loved every second of it here. I mean, the biggest thing for me is I came here the first time last spring after the Lasses final. I did a day trip up from Luton. And I did this. Huh?
Stadium tour?
Yeah, I did the stadium tour.
Yeah. You told us.
And from the moment I stepped here, you know, I just felt like I was at home. You know, most of my ancestry is from like Ireland and things like that.
Mine not.
So to me, just that, you know, I guess kind of cliches, but like the gift of the gab and just friendliness. You know, like when I was down in London, you smile at someone, you're going to get a dirty look. I remember the day I was flying home, I needed some help at a platform, and I was like, am I on the right train? And like the guy just walked away from me. Like I didn't even talk, and I'm just like, okay. But here, you know, every time I ask anyone for help, they're like, "Oh, you're American. Here, I'll take you or whatever."
Come here, buddy, lad. I'll show you where it's at.
I think it's kind of weird because the opposite is if you go down London, you ask someone for help, they walk away. Now you've got an opposite risk up in Newcastle. You ask someone for help, and it's like, am I going to get stuck in a 25-minute conversation?
Oh,
now?
100%. The biggest thing I was telling my missus when I came here was like, I don't know how I'm going to budget this trip because when I came last, no one would let me pay for anything. I'm like, you can't pay for all my stuff.
You're a true Geordie if you hop the metro. And not that I'd encourage that, but we've all done it, haven't we, down the years?
Of course we'll have.
So there's a mission for the next few days, Josh.
Gotcha.
But hurt, we've seen plenty of that, haven't we? And yeah, and I think Josh has obviously mentioned there before, Joe, the hurt. You can win trophies, you can do that, you can all of that, but when you've been really hurt, that's when you know you're a proper fan.
Yeah.
Because that's when you know you're falling in love. When were you hurt? Because let's face it, it's a love-hate relationship a lot of the time.
Oh, I mean, for me, the biggest point of hurt, you know, I've had other hurts in the past. You know, I get knocked out of cups and such like that, and it's always devastating. But for me, it was round about the first time that the takeover was meant to go through, and it just all fell through. And I remember, no matter where you went in Newcastle at the time, if you wanted to talk about your club, you had to talk about one thing, and that was Mike Ashley and what he was doing to the club. And it just ruined me. And it wasn't just falling out of love with Newcastle. It wasn't that. I still love my club and I still love my city. But I just fell out of love with football. I was like, what's the point of even watching football when these megalomaniac millionaires can just come in and just totally stunt the club's growth? I mean, we were fighting, but we were a bottom of the league table team, and it just, nothing felt good. We were getting good players, and we're like, right, this is finally it. We've got a couple of good players, you know, Ben Arthur, Johan Kabay, Demba Bot, and what would happen? We'd just sell them. And we wouldn't even sell them for big bucks. It would be like, oh, we can get 35 million for this player, we'll take it. It's like, no, we could have got 50, 60 million for some of these players, and we're not taking it. And then even then, you take that money, and was it going back into the club? No, it was going into Sports Direct. It was going into Fraser, you know, and it just destroyed me. It broke us, like, spiritually, in my soul and everything, and I just turned away from football, stopped playing FIFA. I've never picked FIFA up since. Stopped playing Football Manager games, stopped watching any football. I didn't keep up to date on football. If Newcastle won, I would see it and I would be like, oh, good. But it's not going to change nothing because Mike Ashley's still in charge, so what's the point? And it was only up until about a year and a half before the takeover way I started coming back into football, and it was actually through Newcastle United women that I started watching the club properly again. So, yeah.
That was all positive. I think for me it's been really difficult the last 9 years running a channel when 2/3 of that has been in the Mike Ashley. You're hoping, well, we're going to go away to Burnley today. Let's hope we get a point.
Yeah.
The mindset of that now has completely changed. But really, I was hurt the first relegation. That really hurt me. I was crying.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I was like the Aston Villa away trip, the 1-0, and Villa rubbing it in, sobbing the time. I still haven't forgiven them. And ironically, it was Damien Duff who scored the own goal and for manager. I think that's when I was hurt. I think the second time we went down, yes, it was disappointing, but I had hope because we had Rafa.
Yeah.
I think we're going to bounce back. I'm pretty confident of that. Personal ones, Bobby Robson passing away, that hit us canny hard. Met Bobby Robson a couple of times. That's hit us hard. And Colin Locke as well.
Wow.
That hit me hard last summer, the photographer, because it meant so much to a lot of us.
Yeah.
So it does hurt you, but Josh, you wanted to touch upon a lovely little story you want to wrap up on.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, the guy that got me into the club, I watched it. He gave me my first kit and everything. It was the Fun 88 Puma Central logo one. And he always said he would take me to my first game. Unfortunately, he had some health issues, so he needed to get a lung transplant. And he said, if it takes, I'll take you. He had a biological son. He'd said, I'd take my two sons to see their first game. Unfortunately, the procedure didn't take. As you know, lung transplants are a very complicated procedure, and it didn't take. And that was the fall before the Carabao Cup. And I remember I wore that kit for the Carabao Cup final, and I just was praying that it would be for him. And that was probably another one of those moments of heartbreak, because I just sat there for 5 minutes watching the fans waving and going crazy, and I'm just like, we just lost, But anyways, on Wednesday at my first match, I pulled the kid out of retirement, and I wore it one last time, so he'd be there with me. And again, the first 5 minutes, I think I just sat there glassy-eyed, just staring at the lights. It didn't even register to me like I'd get to see it under the lights. And I mean, you think the stadium is beautiful as it is, but seeing it under the lights, it's breathtaking. It leaves you speechless. And it was just such a meaningful moment. And I was glad that in a small way he could still be there with me and part of it.
Yeah, that was really nice words, that, isn't it? It's mad how the community of Newcastle United can do that and following the club and falling in love with the community and the club, but not just that, your friendships that you make along the way as well. But that's been our story. We'd like to know yours, as I mentioned at the top of the video, your story. Why support Newcastle? Is it through your family? Is it through your dad? Is it similar to Josh? Is it similar to us two local lads? Let us know in the comments. We're going to do a lot more of these series once every so often. We're going to try and make it once a month, get a new fan on, talk about why they love. We'll get some of the lads on TV as well. But from us three, we'll see you very soon.